So good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Carla. My full name is Carla Boatinghouse Umland, which is a mouthful, so I just go by Carla. I'm the assistant librarian and assistant director at Stonington Free Library. Welcome, everyone, this evening, and we're so happy that you can all be here for a talk with best-selling author Jason Rekulak, who will share some outtake illustrations from his unique thriller, Hidden Pictures. There will be time at the end for questions, and a very special thank you to Jason for sharing his time with us today. We're also grateful to the rest of our staff and volunteers at the library for their support in organizing this special event. We're proud to be joined with our library neighbors, Groton Public, Waterford Public, Mystic and Noank, and Otis Library in Norwich. Imagine, if you will, books that reshape traditional genres and ignite the imagination. As a publisher at Quirk Books, Jason Rekulak excelled at thinking outside the box in just this way. He discovered and published innovative authors like Grady Hendrix, Ransom Riggs, and many others. Jason's own award-winning work includes The Impossible Fortress, finalist for the Edgar Award, Hidden Pictures, the Goodreads Choice Award for Best Horror Novel, and his newest novel, a New York Times bestseller, The Last One at the Wedding. Today, Jason will reveal more illustrations from Hidden Pictures and discuss how the illustrators collaborated to tell this creepy story. So please welcome Jason Rekulak.
Thunderous applause. I hope you all can hear me. I can't see anyone's faces. I just see a bunch of names. So I'm just going to assume you're out there.
We got a couple applause emojis,
Oh,
so
okay. Well,
that's a
that's
good
great.
sign.
What I thought I would do is I have a presentation I've been giving for the last couple of years about this book. It's sort of most effective if you've actually read the book. So if you haven't read the book, there's kind of spoilers galore. You may want to well, I'll tell you when the spoilers come. You can cover your ears. The presentation sort of answers the most commonly asked questions I always get about the book. And then at the end, if there are questions, certainly I'd be happy to answer them. So I am going to start by sharing my screen. Let's see. You should now see a big mess of, let's see. All right. Do you now see the cover of the book, Carla?
Yes, looks great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first question, the question I get the most is, boy, this is such a weird book. Why are there pictures in it? Why did you write a book with pictures? Did you draw the pictures? And the origin of this book, it has a weird origin story. It was sort of born out of a failure. Prior to this book, I'd written another book that nobody wanted. I'd spent like 2 years writing this novel, and my agent sent it around to maybe 20 different editors, and no one wanted it. It was just sort of a massive failure. And I was like not happy about that. And my agent says, well, it's not a big deal. Just pick yourself up. All you got to do is write another book. And I was like, well, that's easy for you to say. I just spent 2 years working on this thing. And the idea of going, back to that desk alone by myself for like another 2 years, I was just like, gosh, it just seemed like it was going to be really, really difficult. And but then I thought, well, back when I used to work in publishing, I loved collaborating with all these illustrators and designers and photographers. I loved working on books with visual elements. It was always really fun for me because I can't do any of those things. Like personally, I'm not a good illustrator. I'm not a good designer. So I just love watching those people work. And so I called these two friends of mine who happened to be illustrators. And I said, okay, here's the deal, guys. I'm going to write this mystery, and there are going to be clues in it that are illustrations. And I want you guys to draw the illustrations. Do you want to do this? And they said, yeah, sure, what's it about? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. I just know that like I don't want to write a whole book by myself again. I want to write a book with two of my friends. So at least I have someone to talk to about it while I'm working my way through it. And so they were very gracious and helpful, and they agreed to do it. And and even though I didn't know what the story was about, we did have a couple basic parameters. We knew that I wanted someone in the book to be creating the art. I didn't want it to be decorative, like you might see in like, Lord of the Rings or something like that. I wanted the pictures to be coming from the world of the story. I wanted there to be clues. I thought it would be neat if the art somehow changed over the course of the book, so you weren't always looking at the same kind of pictures. And then lastly, because I knew a little about how books got printed, I knew that the art would have to be black and white. So ideally, the character was drawing with like a pencil or a pen or maybe a black crayon. And in hindsight, I realized like, even though I didn't know what the book was about, I knew a lot about what the book was going to become. I guess you could say I knew the form or the shape of the book. And then I spent about 3 months brainstorming all these really, really bad ideas for like, okay, what kind of story would work within these parameters? Um, and it was really hard. I had a lot of really, I'm too embarrassed to tell you what any of the ideas were. Um, but they were all different kinds of stories. They weren't necessarily, none of them were supernatural. I thought maybe somebody would go to art school and become like a better illustrator or something. But then one day I was walking down the street and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I just like, I think this is like a result of just when you focus on a problem long enough, eventually while you're sleeping, your brain will figure it out and like give you an answer. And so I was just walking down the street and I was like, oh my gosh, there's supernatural invention. This ghost is like using this boy to channel her drawings, and it's told by the babysitter. And I don't know, it just came to me like in a flash. I wish I wish I could make that happen every day. Um, so I called the illustrators and I said, great news, guys. This is going to be so easy for you because all you have to do is draw like a 5-year-old boy. And they said, no, that's terrible news. That's like the hardest thing you could ask us to do because we both went to art school. We know how to draw. And you're asking us to forget everything we've ever learned. And it's going to be really hard to make that convincing. And it's going to be really hard to make that scary. And I said, well, it's too bad. Like, this is the best idea I have. That's what you got to do. So we got to work, and I'm going to show you some of the behind the scenes stuff that went into the making of the pictures. Very first thing I did, I went down to my basement. I got out all of my daughter's art. She's a teenager now, but when she was little, she loved to draw just like Teddy. And of course, my wife saved everything. We have all of her artwork. So this is a picture she drew when she was 6, just to have like a baseline of what like a 6-year-old draws like. I also went to a kindergarten down the street from my house. Uh, took some photos of the art hanging on the walls in the kindergarten. The teacher let me look around and showed me some stuff. And meanwhile, the illustrators, Doogie and Will, they were working on the creature of Anya. We thought, wow, this is this really fun opportunity. The book has like a kind of monster in it, this ghost, and she could look like anything. What should she look like? How fun is this? We get to design our own like signature character. And so they just started sketching different faces. And they said to me, what's going to be really hard is that because it's a 5-year-old artist drawing Anya, the imaginary friend, it can't be very detailed, but you want it to look scary. So it has to look simple, but scary. And I'm like, that's going to be really, really tricky. So like this is one of the first ones they gave to me. And I think we were like, yeah, let's just do a lot of pictures of Teddy and Anya at a table and put Anya in the middle. And so this was like an early effort. And I remember when this came in, I was thinking, well, this looks pretty rough, like could maybe Teddy be a slightly better artist than this? Maybe this is how a 5-year-old would really draw, but I want it to be a little better. I'm worried people won't want to look at 400 pages of this. So they came back with this, which was like the opposite problem, right? Now it's too good. I don't think a 5-year-old would actually draw this way. And so we found ourselves kind of looking for like this Goldilocks zone, like this sweet spot between not good enough and too good. And the whole time as we're bouncing back and forth and they're sending things in, they're also working on this thing in the middle, like what should she look like? And so I'm just going to rip through a bunch really quickly just to show you. They sent me I think the final book has 50 pictures in it, or 57 or something. They sent me 300, and I know they did more than 300 because they didn't send me everything. There's stuff that they probably cut. Um, so I think there's a great creative lesson in that for you creative types, you know, like the first time you try something, it's never going to be the right way. You got to try lots of different things. And if you're, well, I mean, that's true, like so many things, right? That's true of cooking. It's everything. Anyway, uh, aside. Okay, here's some different things they did. Uh, this is one. Here's another one. This was kind of fun. The upside down Anya. I really like this idea. The idea is that as Teddy's drawing, his hand is sort of smudging the creature, like like you see, like kids, their hands get so dirty when they draw. But it wasn't the best idea, so we kept going. This one, this one. This is way too detailed. Obviously, a 5-year-old would never draw like this, but they tried it. This one, this one. This was a big breakthrough because it was the first time they tried using a crayon. And as soon as we saw like those crayon lines, something about it felt right. We're like, oh yeah, right. This is what like 5-year-old art feels like. I also like the way they were drawing the grass because like it is true, like 5-year-olds, they will draw every blade of grass and then draw every strand of hair like on Teddy's head. So we kind of liked this. We liked the crayon. We just thought this thing on the right still needed work. And so pretty soon after that, they came up with this one. And this is actually a picture from the book. This is the picture of Teddy posing with his imaginary friend Anya. And we felt pretty good about this one. And once we locked in with this one, the rest of them became a lot easier because like we knew what Anya looked like. We knew how Teddy could draw. So like drawing a rabbit or a house is much more clear and straightforward because we had this sort of baseline. So that's a little insight into how the art came together. The next question I get is people ask, you know, did I write the whole book and then request all the art, or was I working in tandem with them? And the answer to that is it was kind of a little bit of both. Like I had most of the book done before they started drawing pictures, but I didn't want to be too done because I knew that once I started seeing the art, I was just going to have better ideas, and I wanted it to feel like it was all really fully integrated. Um, and two good examples of that collaboration that I remember are that one, both of the illustrators are right-handed, but they started drawing with their left hands to handicap themselves to make them worse illustrators. And I thought that was such a really cool idea and an interesting idea. And that's where I got the idea that Teddy, when he's drawing by himself, he's a lefty, but when he is channeling Anya and her powers, she is a righty, so she's using his right hand, and Mallory notices that, and it really freaks her out. She's like, why is this kid drawing with his right hand? And that's thanks to the illustrators when I learned how they were working. The other thing is the final picture in the book. I always thought the book should end with some kind of illustration. But I never knew what it should be. It just seemed fitting that, of course, it has to end with a piece of art. But what is that last piece of art? And when I saw this sketch, the one that's on your screen now, and then right after Mallory leaves, oh, I'll come back to that. Right after Mallory leaves the interview, Teddy runs out and gives her this picture of him and her together. And when I saw these two, these are like two of the first pictures you see in the book. I thought, oh, it would be really great if at the end, Teddy, who is now Flora, comes out and gives Mallory one last picture where everyone, you know, looks the way they should and they are the way they should. And there's just a nice symmetry to that, right? I mean, like you see symmetry in art all the time, or bookends, or whatever you want to call it. And so I was really, but I don't think I would have thought of that on my own. I just didn't think of it until I started looking at what they were giving me. Now backtrack just a tiny bit to those things I skipped over. This is my office while I was working on the book. As the pictures came in, I would tape up all the pictures right on this wall behind me, actually, just some bookshelves there, just so I could keep track of where the order that the pictures were coming in, because we did try to hide lots of little clues and hints in the pictures. If you ever go back and read the book again, you'll see that Teddy is always drawing memories from his past. Like he'll have like a little hot air balloon in the background. Um, this is a rabbit. This is the first picture Mallory sees when she walks into the house. It's on the refrigerator. And later we learn that this rabbit figured very prominently into his abduction. And he even has a picture of a goat. And at the end of the book, when Mallory goes to visit Flora, she was actually from living on a goat farm, and that's where she was raised before she was abducted. So this roadmap of the book became really helpful as we were putting it together and trying to sort of foreshadow lots of fun different things. How am I doing on time? That took 15 minutes. I guess the next thing in this, I'm trying to guess what the next slide is because I haven't done this PowerPoint in a while. I did this at a design school. Oh, these are outtake covers. I don't know. I don't know if these are interesting or not. Some people always ask me about the cover and they ask me if I have any input in it. And the answer is, I think the publisher sends it to me to be polite. Like they say, what do you think? But I don't know if they really care what I think. They have very strong opinions about what they think. Um, but these are some alternate covers that we looked at. I think there was always an idea to hide a picture in the cover because the book is called Hidden Picture. So it just seemed like an obvious thing to do. And the designers had a lot of fun with that idea. For example, this is like the famous optical illusion of like, is it a vase or do you see two faces? Which is kind of fun on the cover, but not really a particularly interesting cover. This one came very close to being the cover of the book. It took me a while to see the hidden picture here. This is a skull. These are the eyes. This fence is the teeth, and my name is sort of like the crown of the skull. I just thought it was a little weird, but I was okay with it. But then the reason this got shot down is because of booksellers. If anyone's worked in a bookstore, you know that booksellers hate white covers. Because people have dirty hands. People come out of the coffee shop, they've just eaten a brownie, they pick up a white book, and their grubby little thumbs get, chocolate all over the white cover. So they were like, please, please, please don't give us a white cover. You just don't see that many of them. Um, and this particular one, I think they were going to do with like a matte texture because they really wanted it to look like drawing paper, and matte books get really dirty really fast. So they killed it. They tried different variations of it though with different colors, like this yellow one, this red one. I actually really like this one a lot. I thought this was a really cool cover because you get the paper skull in there and it looks like Teddy drew it. But for whatever reason, I still don't even know how they ended up with this one. They did end up with this one though, and I like it. I like it fine. The last thing I'm going to show you is, and this was just an also, because the nature of the story tends to be pretty universal. Like I think everybody can relate to the idea of watching a child, right? Everyone's done that at some point. This is probably like the most accessible story I'll ever write because everyone's been in the position of being a babysitter at some point. Even if you haven't worked as a babysitter, you probably have to look after like a little brother or a nephew at some point. And of course, kids draw weird stuff all over the world, right? That's also very, very universal. So this book has just traveled. I think it's been translated now into like 40 languages. And the most fun part of that process is when the international publishers change the cover for their markets. So I brought some of those to show you also. Sometimes they just change the type, like this is Portugal, this is Greece, this I think is Romania, but I'm not 100% sure. Sometimes I get the book, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Um, but then they can also just go in a completely different direction. This is what the Lithuanians did. Just kind of fun. Japan, I love I love the Japanese cover. I kind of like all graphic design that comes out of Japan. I just think it looks really cool. So that's a favorite of mine. This is Brazil. I like this one too. I think their idea was that Teddy drew the cover himself and wrote the type. And can't see it too well in this image, but it actually has Teddy's grubby fingerprints on the cover and on the spine, like his dirty hands were like covered with like pencil as he was working on the book. It's smudged all over, and it is a white cover, so as it travels, it gets even dirtier and looks more authentic. Um, as Taiwan, and what else do I got in here? China, um, Hebrew. And this might be my favorite out of all of them. They changed the title, which they can do, or they have to ask, I guess. But I don't know why they didn't want to call the book Hidden Pictures. I don't know how you would say that in Italian. Um, but they wanted to call it Teddy, and I said, sure, that's fine. And then I really like this cover. I like that it just has Teddy's art like front and center, and it has the characters. And I just think it's really effective. And I wouldn't have minded if the US cover looked something like this. But instead we have this. And and so let's see. That's the end of my slideshow. So that took me to 20 minutes. Um, maybe people have questions. Uh, that's my little behind the scenes tour of Hidden Pictures.
Sure. Yeah, if anyone has a question, you can unmute yourself, turn on your microphone, or just put it in the chat. Um, I am curious about the translations. How does that come about? Is that all down to the publisher or?
Yeah, so like the French publisher will license the book and then they will hire a translator that they like to work with um to do the translation. And then it gets printed because they don't send it to me to check because what would and I wonder about this all the time because I have no idea if it's a good translation or not. I don't know if it's faithful. I don't know if they're making things up, taking things out, adding things.
It
I
could
have no
say
idea.
anything. It could
Right,
say anything, right?
right. I wouldn't know. So yeah,
Fascinating.
it's pretty crazy.
So Julie says, I loved seeing the process. Thank you. Thank you. I agree. The Japanese cover is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
And a question from John. Did you update the artists on the story as you got closer to finishing the book?
Yes. But I kind of knew, I kind of knew, sorry, my camera looks fuzzy. I kind of knew the story, like so, sometimes I've written books where like you sort of discover the story as you're going along. And this was one where like I kind of just knew like everything from the beginning. So like when I told them the story, I knew the ending, I knew everything that was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to happen. But I knew there were no real surprises for them along the way. But so I don't think they were surprised by too much. Because
So
I
were there
knew.
certain clues you wanted them to include, or did they kind of
Oh yeah,
come up
no,
with
it was
that?
I had a very specific list for them. I said, I want a picture of I need a picture of a rabbit, I need a picture of um a man dragging a body through a forest. And I would even do, I wish I had them, I'd share them. I should put them in the PowerPoint. You should see my sketches. Like they're terrible. Like they're stick figure drawings and they're really bad. And of course, because they're illustrators, like they would take my simple suggestion and like totally change the composition of it. Like they change the composition, the perspective. Sometimes they do like an aerial perspective, just to keep things interesting. Because they have, richer visual imaginations than I do. So it was really fun, super fun way to write a book. I highly recommend that everybody write novels with pictures because you always have someone to talk to about it, And the other thing is, I'll tell you this, when you write a book by yourself, your confidence can flag because like you're alone, you're like working on it. But as this art came in, I'm like, God, this art is so good.
Hmm.
Even if the text is just so, like amazing art with so text, it's still gonna be a pretty good book, So it just gave me that confidence that like it was gonna work. And it kind of challenged me to like write the best book I could to like rise to the level they were at.
Hmm.
Um, so
So you inspired each other.
I don't know if I inspired them, but they definitely inspired me.
And along those lines, Julie asks, were there particular authors that inspired you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I grew up, I mean, the obvious answer to this question is Stephen King, because like I was a teenager in the 80s when he was super, super popular. And so I was like reading when I was in high school, I was reading all of his classics, like Carrie and The Shining and a lot of like horror sort of set in suburbia. That's what like he was sort of when he started, like that's like his characters were like drinking Maxwell House coffee and all that stuff, and they were like regular people, but they had ghosts in the house. Um, so I mean that would be the big answer, but I mean I do try to read like just a ton of different kinds of books. Like I don't read only horror novels. I try to read like everything. And like for example, this book, the template of this book is actually like this Henry James book called The Turn of the Screw. It's about a nanny and she's in this house and she thinks it was like a haunting, but no one believes her because she has like a strange past. And so like there's like this like rich tradition of I don't know if it's like gothic suspense, where like a young woman comes alone to an unfamiliar place and weird things are happening and no one believes her, And there's so many books like that. Like Rebecca, the Daphne du Maurier book is kind of like that, like she's in this
Mhm.
big strange house and no one believes her. And like I love those kinds of stories, but there's at least like 100 years of those kinds of stories.
Yeah, you could say Jane Eyre is kind of similar.
Yeah,
She's,
exactly.
yeah. Hmm.
Like,
Can't go wrong with that. Nicole says, I loved this book. Looking forward to sharing it with one of the library discussion groups that I facilitate. They don't ordinarily choose thrillers or suspense. I'm hoping pictures will get them to reconsider. Thank you for sharing these insights with us, Jason.
well, it's a pleasure. It is popular with book clubs and library book groups. And I do hear that all the time. We don't normally read this kind of stuff. I think the Stephen King quote on the cover frightened some people. They think it's going to be a much more horrific book than it really is. And also, I won this Goodreads horror award. So people are expecting, decapitations you know, I think it's, I mean, if those of you who read it know, like it's a suspense novel and it's a thriller, but I don't think it's, going to give anyone nightmares.
I agree. Um, and then Leanne says, looking forward to the last one at the wedding, approximately 2 weeks on the Libby waiting list for me. And we
Oh,
all know that pain.
yeah.
And we do have a copy of the print book at Stonington Free Library. Anne says, our book club loved Hidden Pictures.
Thank you, Anne.
Donna asks, will you write another book with art embedded?
Yeah, it's funny. I had an idea right after I finished Hidden Pictures, and my editor said to me, don't do this one because you will become known as the person who always has pictures in his books. And I was like, well, is that like the worst thing to be known as? I think I was okay with that. He's like, I really think you should write. Do you have any other ideas? So I had this other idea for this book that is called The Last One at the Wedding. And there's still, we sneaked a couple pictures in it because I couldn't resist it. There's some like section openers and a map because I love books with maps. And but now I can do I am working on another book with the same illustrators and it's totally different. Like there's no little children in it, but so it's going to be really weird, like when you start these things, like it's like, I'm like, are people going to like this? Is this too weird? Is this, But I've definitely never seen anything like it, and I think it's really cool. And I'm hoping to finish uh this year. And if I
Can you
finish,
tell us what genre this one is in?
yeah, this one is also a suspense thriller, and this one also, like Hidden Pictures, it sort of veers a little bit into the realm of the supernatural. So
Okay,
I'll just say that. I don't want to say more because I don't want
right.
someone to run off with my great idea and
Yes.
beat me to market. Not that that would happen.
Keep
Uh,
us in suspense. That's okay.
I'll tell you another funny story. There was an audiobook for this, right? And so when they did the audiobook, they called me and they said, this book doesn't make any sense if you can't see the art. And I was like, oh, right. Yeah, it probably wouldn't. So I don't know if this has ever happened with another audiobook, but this might be a I can't remember the word I want to use. Unprecedented in publishing. The audiobook has 3,000 words that are not in the print book. And initially, when I wrote the print book, I actually had Mallory describe every picture as she found it. I said, she's like, I'm looking at a picture of a goat, or I'm looking at a picture of a rabbit. And when I was editing the book, I took all those descriptions out. I was like, this is silly. It's much more interesting if I just show the pictures and let the reader just reach their own conclusions about it. And I was like, that will put them in Mallory's head. Like they'll be seeing the pictures through her eyes and it'll feel more immersive that way. So I took all the descriptions out. But then for the audiobook, I had to put them all back in. And so there are plenty of people who listen to the audiobook and have no idea there's art in it. Like they just don't know. And then, they see a copy like 6 months later and they're like, oh. And that
But it
just,
still works.
yeah, it still works. Yeah. And they seem like, and the narrator, I mean, it helps that there's an amazing narrator. She's so good. And she just like performs the book so beautifully that it sort of makes up for the absence of the art because you get her performance, which you don't get in the print book, so it's kind of fun.
Wow. So really, really playing with different formats. That's amazing. So Carolyn says, I plowed through this book, exclamation point. It's fun to get to hear from the author. As the parent of a 6 and an 8-year-old who love to draw, it was interesting to see the process of how adults geared their drawings down. Thanks for sharing the other book covers as well. Can't wait to read your next book.
Oh, thank you.
I have a question, which is, how did you get Stephen King to blurb your book?
Yeah, no, so I mean, that was the craziest thing. I knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who knew him, and so we were like, well, he does this. Like I've seen him like blurb other books. And so we sent it off, but it was kind of like throwing a message in a bottle and like just throwing it in the ocean. Like I hope it gets to him. It could like fail at any point along this chain, somebody doesn't feel like being nice. Um and then the funny thing is that the email came back through the same chain. And I got it on New Year's Day. And it was like the first day of the year, and I got it at like 4 o'clock and I just about died. I mean, it was pretty awesome.
That's
So
amazing.
that was my favorite part of the whole process. Because like I said, I mean, when I was a kid, I I would go to my library, the Metuchen Public Library, and like if they had a new one, I have a very vivid memory. I went to the library. I didn't have my library card, but I just like popped in because I think I wanted to be in air conditioning for like 15 minutes. And I forget what book they had. It might have been like It or something. It was like a big Stephen King novel.
Yeah.
I really wanted it, but I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have my library card. And I was too afraid to ask the librarians if I could like check it out. I wasn't gonna like confront adults at the desk and ask them. And it was 4:30. And so I'm like, I think I can run home in time, get my library card and run back and get back to the library before they close. And so I have this very vivid memory of just running like, open down Main Street in my town, trying to get to my house and get back. And I did to get that book. So that's the kind of fan I was. So yeah, getting his seal of approval, pretty wonderful.
Well, it's well deserved, that's for sure.
Thank you.
And that's a great story about the library. I'm glad you made it. And I'm sure they would have stayed open a minute or two to help you get that book if they had to.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? We do have some time, so
Carla,
yeah,
should we tell people how we know each other?
sure.
I have
No,
known
go ahead.
Carla, I think since sixth grade. We were in like
Yep,
sixth grade together.
that's right.
And
Yeah.
through high school, I think we were in a lot of the same English classes at least. right?
Yes,
Did you have
I
Mrs.
think so.
Stevens?
I did. Yes.
So we read Jane Eyre in Mrs. Stevens class. Do you remember that?
Yes, that's right. He has a much better memory than I do.
So
She
anyway,
was tough, Mrs. Stevens.
oh, she was tough. Yeah, I'll confess I didn't get through Jane Eyre in that class. And I remember as she was handing back like our book reports, as she turned my back, she said, Jason wrote a wonderful essay on the first three chapters of Jane Eyre. I was like, well, I guess I didn't fool her. Um,
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, so Jason and I went to school together. And I will say that what I remember best about Jason is that he came up with a lot of great pranks and jokes that we could all enjoy. And it was not a kind of a clicky kind of situation, which happened in other parts of our school. So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, we weren't like, I don't think we did anything outside of school, but like I know we would eat lunch together a lot.
mhm.
And I feel like we were like in adjacent or overlapping friend groups.
Yes, I think that's the case indeed. Yes.
So
One more question we have here. Donna says, as an author, how meaningful is the Goodreads Award?
well, I have mixed feelings about it. Like on one hand, I don't look at Goodreads because sometimes like it's just it gets really mean and people make all kinds of assumptions about me. Um, I guess like strangely political, and I don't think of this as like a political book at all. I would never write, I would never, I don't know. And but at the same time, uh I was really happy that I won, you know? Um and and I was grateful that they put the book in horror, which frankly is like an easier category to win in because there's just less competition. When you're in that mystery and thriller category, good luck,
Hmm.
because there's Frida McFadden and Riley Sager and all these other people who are insanely popular, much more popular than I am. And in the end, it just comes down to like a number of votes. Um, but still, that year, for whatever reason, I was in horror. And there just weren't a lot of other like popular horror books that year. So, but there's no money, there's no trophy, there's not even a paper certificate. You don't even get an email. You just find out, you know.
Yeah, how do you find out?
I think my editor said, "Hey, did you check Goodreads? You won." And but hey, it was great.
Nice.
It was fantastic. I'll take it. I hope it happens
Yes.
again.
Well, and Donna says, I think you are being modest. The creativity is amazing. And I would
Oh,
have to agree. Speaking of horror, do you want to talk a little bit about your middle school series, which had a little bit of
oh,
illustration aspect?
yeah, I didn't even know you knew about those. Nobody
Oh,
knows
yes.
about those.
I think you sent me one for one of the libraries that I worked at.
Okay, hold on. Let me get them so I can show
Okay,
people.
sure. So under a pen name, Jason wrote a series of middle school grade books, um, which also had very interesting covers. I don't know if any librarians or avid readers out there have read those or seen them. It's called Lovecraft Middle School.
Yeah, I did these books. Here's what happened. I got I oh, I know what happened. I went to Disney World. And I was in the Haunted Mansion in Disney World, and there are these portraits when you're in there, and as you walk past them, they change. And I thought, well, surely this is some kind of like projector, but I couldn't really figure how they were doing it. I was like, where is the projector? Because I can put my hand up and it's still working. And I realized it's this thing called lenticular printing. And it's a printing process where they print this really weird image on a piece of paper and then they put a special lens over it. And when you walk past the image, it changes it, or it can move or transform. It sort of animates the image. They can do a couple of different things. So I got really excited about using that on like covers for kids because I thought, well, these would be like trading cards. If there were all these weird like characters who turn into monsters, you'd want to collect them all. So I'll try to like hold it up. This is Professor Gargoyle, and like if you walk past the book, he sort of like his horns pop up. Um, like that, so there's like 6 or 7 like frames in there of animation. And so started with the covers, after Professor Gargoyle, there was like the Slither sisters. They have like snakes in their hair. And there's a boy who turns into a bug. We did 4 of them. And so there's this sort of connective narrative about this school that's sort of secretly overrun by monsters. And there's a little like Lovecraftian horror in there with like all parallel universes and portals to other dimensions and things like that. Um, and the books did okay. Um, but after doing 4 of them, I was like working a full-time job and I was doing them at night because I couldn't find anyone to do them the way I wanted them to be done. So I was doing them myself. And after doing 4, I was like, I'm going crazy, like writing these books and like working full time. And so I kind of feel bad about it. We kind of just stopped the series after 4 and I never really like tied it up. So I always feel like I should go back and do a 5th one, just to like end it, for like the few people who care, who want to know what happens. But I haven't done it yet.
Well, could be a retirement project.
Yeah, maybe. Uh,
Well, we thought those were very cool.
yeah.
And of course, the school I want to believe is inspired by our school that we attended.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, it's the only high school I knew, so
right, yeah. Any other thoughts or comments? I hope everyone had a great time and is inspired to read some of these books, which are very interesting.
yes, and
Um,
please check out my new one. Get it from the library. There's a copy available. It's not supernatural, it's just a straight up suspense novel. Some people don't like supernatural. So if you don't like supernatural, you just want like a mystery with like people, maybe a little murder set at a wedding. You should check it out. And if you like any of the,
is
you should leave me a good review on Goodreads to
yes.
offset the nasty ones.
Apparently those reviews do make a difference.
Yeah.
Amy says, thank you. And Nicole says, I've recommended your books to many thriller fans at our library, and every one of them enjoyed them immensely. Your
Oh,
fandom is definitely growing. Thank you with 3 exclamation points.
I love it. Thank you. That's great to hear.
And is the last one at the wedding available as an audiobook?
It is. It's a fantastic audiobook. The guy, and in fact, if you have, I think it's on Spotify now. Like if you have Spotify, you can listen to it.
Hmm.
Just use your Spotify account. The last one at the wedding is it's I wanted to write from a totally different perspective than Hidden Pictures. I want to do something totally different. So it's from the perspective of this 52-year-old UPS driver from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and his daughter is getting married, and he has all these concerns and reservations about her future, his future son-in-law, and the whole family, right? He can tell something's kind of squirrely about them. And they found this guy to read the book, and he's great. He's got this great voice that is just kind of like, it's just like this perfect like dad UPS driver, like kind of gruff voice. And the guy called me. He was so thankful. He's like, you don't understand, like he reads audiobooks for a living. That's all he does for but he's like, he always does Tom Clancy, military thrillers, and science fiction novels because he's always like the captain of like the army or like the general. And he's like, it's so nice just to play like a dad. He's like, I'm just like a regular guy. And so he really, really got into it and just phenomenal audiobook. It's probably my favorite out of like all the audiobooks that have been made out of my books.
That's
So
great. And the narrator definitely makes a difference for audiobooks, I find. So that's wonderful to hear.
yeah, I don't know why. I hear from authors like I want to narrate my own audiobook, and I'm like, no, you don't. Don't do that.
Yeah, it
Uh,
really depends. Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, I would never, ever, ever do it after going through this process and really getting an appreciation for like what a really good narrator can bring to it. They just add so much. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a gift and a talent. I think David Sedaris, I think, does a good job reading his own, but that's a whole different thing. That's a different
Yeah, I can
animal.
see how maybe with like memoir, maybe you could do it, and maybe people want you to do it, like celebrities, they always get to read their
Yeah,
own. But I don't know. I
that's true.
feel like when you have a cast of characters, you want leave it to the professionals.
Right, exactly. Well, we won't keep you any longer. I am very appreciative. This was really great and fun. And if anyone else has any last thoughts or questions, now is a good time. And I'm definitely going to check out the audiobook for the last one at the wedding. I loved the print book because I do love books with maps, and I
Yeah,
liked the evolving image at each chapter head. So it was cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I hope you like it. And this is a real pleasure. So thanks for having me, everybody. Thanks for reading the book. I appreciate it.